the Welsh king Owain Gwynedd died in 1169 without leaving behind a clear heir to the throne. It became more complicated once they realized there were a minimum of 14 different heirs to the throne. 14! When you think about it, 14 is a pretty large number, because this is the minimum. This is the minimum amount of people that could have been heirs to the throne. So clearly, they started fighting. And that would lead to a civil war. Now, in that civil war, two princes who were peaceful men decided to leave. And so in 1170, Princes Madoc and Ruaidh left Wales. They left northern Wales and they sailed west to look for new land. And so before they left, they gathered a party of 100 people and departed in two ships, the Gorn Gwenant and the Peter Sant. But when they headed west, they didn't stop at Ireland. You would assume they would stop at Ireland, right? Because that's where the land was. They knew that there was land there in Ireland, but they didn't know if there was any land past there. So why would they keep going past Ireland? Surely we'll never know that. All we know is that they went past Ireland. They went farther west than Ireland. But we do know they came back a year later in 1171 to gather more people for their new settlement. But when they left, they never came back. Now, if I'm messing up pronunciations left and right, contrary to unpopular belief, I don't speak Welsh. So, my bad if I do that. I hope I get things right, but I probably won't. Madoc and Ruaidh landed with their party in Mobile Bay, Alabama. From there, it's believed they moved north along the Alabama River. Now, along the Alabama River, there's stone structures there. There are many tribes surrounding the Alabama River that describe the structures as being built by white people, which would be confusing because at the time it was only Native Americans there, and, well, Vikings, but the Vikings were up north. We're talking about Alabama on the Gulf of Mexico. So, highly unlikely that Vikings would be moving north from the south when they were already in the north. It was said that these structures also had a resemblance to Dolwydden Castle in northern Wales, which is the birthplace of Madoc. Now, it's said there was Welsh influence as they moved up the Tennessee River and the Missouri River until they eventually settled somewhere near Louisville in Kentucky. However, they were pushed out of Kentucky, and so they ended up in the upper Missouri River Valley. And they had no reason to leave there, and so they settled in the Missouri River Valley. Now, it's speculated that they transformed into the Mandan tribe over time, over their time staying there in the Missouri River Valley, the upper Missouri River Valley. When New World pioneers came there during the Columbus era, they found a tribe of white people living there, living with streets like made up of squares and using coracles. Now, a coracle, it was a small, round, lightweight boat, and they fished with them. Now, the thing about these boats, they were found in Wales at the time. They were used frequently in Wales, and so what was that doing with a tribe in the New World? And now, unlike the other tribes, the Mandan people grew gray hair with age. Now, that didn't happen with other tribes surrounding them. That was only with them, and that was also happening in Europe as well, and like the Old World. All of that places, that's where that happened. It did not happen with Native Americans in the New World. Now, it was potentially reported as well that the Mandan language was extremely similar to Welsh, to the point where they could respond if they were spoken to in Welsh. In the 1800s, the painter George Catlin, who is known for staying with Native American tribes and gathering information about their culture and painting things around them, he eventually ended up spending time with the Mandan tribe. So George Catlin claimed that the Madoc party eventually integrated themselves with the Mandan tribe because they were already there. And at some point they became indistinguishable from each other because their culture ended up becoming one and the same. Now, unfortunately, before more research could be done, a large majority of the Mandan tribe was wiped out by smallpox in 1837. In 1953 as well, the Daughters of the American Revolution put up a plaque in Mobile Bay, Alabama, that stated, "In memory of Prince Madoc, a Welsh explorer who landed on the shores of Mobile Bay in 1170 and left behind with the Indians the Welsh language." When Mormon settlers initially arrived in Utah, they came across two distinct Native American tribes. The tribes they came across were the Hopi and the Zuni. I probably fucking butchered that. Now, the Mormon settlers were so convinced that these tribes were Welsh that they brought out Welsh interpreters to try to test, just to see if they could understand Welsh, just to see if the people of these tribes could understand Welsh. And they couldn't. The tribes had no idea what they were saying. It was just baseless speculation, but the Mormons were so convinced that these two tribes could speak Welsh. For what reason? Who knows? Another story that spread was of white natives with blonde hair and blue eyes inhabiting the area around the Ohio River. And now it's said that these people were killed in a battle near the Ohio River Falls before anybody from the old world could contact them. But of course, as usual, there were people trying to gain popularity or money from telling an outlandish tale about the Welsh in America. Or I should say the Americas, because there was a claim that the Incas and the Aztecs, both with the respective empires, were of Welsh descent. You gotta be crazy. And the reason for this outside of the popularity gain or the money gain from telling a tale like that is that Europeans just could not believe that Native Americans could build this stuff. Of course, you could see in the scramble for Africa, definitely, that the Europeans viewed everybody else as inferior. And so they viewed the Native Americans as inferior as well. And so when they saw the beautiful structures created by the Incas and Aztecs, they might have thought, oh, there's no way, that had to be a European. Fast forwarding to 1799, the Tennessee governor, John Sevier, in 1799, the Tennessee governor, John Sevier, reported that there were 6 Native American bodies buried wearing brass armor that bore a Welsh coat of arms. Now, he provided no follow-up at all. It was just a simple report. It was part of a report on something. Something unrelated. So he just said that, no follow-up. Now, that would have been such a big thing then, because it was 1799, and he could disprove that Columbus was the first European in America. But he didn't. There was no follow-up. He didn't do any of that. What reason? Might have been a lie. The first ever mention of Madoc in literature was in the 1400s by the poet Merdad Apres. I have no idea where I would even begin to pronounce that. I'm just gonna put his name on the screen. Now, this poet described Madoc as one who sought nor lands nor flocks save in the vasty deep. The story of Madoc was popularized by David Powell in 1584 with his book History of Wales, in which he used an earlier 1500s writing by Humphrey Lloyd? I don't know. Weird Welsh names. I'll just put it on screen again. And the story of Madoc was also used by John Dee in 1578, George Peckham in 1583, Richard Hakluyt in 1584, and Thomas Herbert in 1634. Robert Southey wrote his poem Madoc in 1805, and he stated that Madoc abandoned his barbarous country and sailed away to the west in search of some better resting place. The land which he discovered pleased him. He left there part of his people, and went back to Wales for a fresh supply of adventurers, with whom he again set sail and was heard of no more. But throughout all these versions of the story, inconsistencies are bound to pop up, as with any story when there's so many versions of it. And so one of the things that nobody could decide on was the landing location. There were claims everywhere from the Amazon down in South America to as far north as Newfoundland in Canada. It was all over the place, so far south, so far north, but the most plausible seemed to be Mobile Bay in Alabama. But even the Mobile Bay version was questionable. From what we know about the Mobile Bay report, it was first known to come about by known to be unreliable historians, and those historians were Hatchett Chandler and Zella Armstrong in 1950. Now, the legacy and legend of Madoc is one to behold for sure. It wormed its way into a textbook from Alabama throughout the 70s until it was removed in the mid-1990s. And it was removed because of an influx of complaints from historians and scholars claiming it was a myth. And when you really think about it, at the end of the day, Madoc really can just be another myth, another legend. Because when you think about it, there was no mention of him for 3 centuries after it was claimed he made landfall in Alabama. And then after that, there was unreliable accounts, no real concrete evidence aside from the speculation and people building onto those unreliable accounts. And really, when you think about it, it's just another myth. Just another legend. And now, Malcolm Price wrote a book about Madoc titled "With Madoc to the New World," and it might be a cool read. If you like this, if you like the story of Madoc, then that might be a cool read for you. Now, recording this, it sounds real at the start. Honestly, like presenting it as a real story is pretty interesting because there are like pre-Columbian like stories like this, like pre-Columbus stories like this, like the Vikings. Maybe there were the Chinese in California. You might have heard about that theory. And so it really sounds real, but at the end of the day, it's another myth, another legend that could end up being true. but if you really thought that this was real in the start, then I got you. Not really. Have a nice day.